Welcome to the Let Your Spirit Guides Speak podcast. I'm Debra Engle, and I want to thank you so much for joining me today for information about living a happier and more creative life with the help of your personal spirit guides. You can find this podcast and many others at sacredstoriesmedia.com. Also, you'll find my book, Let Your Spirit Guides Speak, on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and at your favorite independent bookstore. And please stop by my website, debraengle.com, for information about upcoming events and workshops. That's DebraEngle.com. I'm excited to be with you today because this is the first in a series of podcasts about getting to know and work with your spirit guides, which I believe is one of the most natural and normal things in the world, whether you've ever had experiences with your spirit guides or not. In this series of 12 podcasts, I'll help you not only meet your guides, but learn how to trust them. How can you communicate with them daily on big decisions and little ones too? We'll talk about how you can rely on spiritual guidance to make more money, be healthier, and improve your love relationships. And we'll also talk about simple ways that your guides will make your life easier. What to do when you have a spiritual blackout and feel like you're all alone, and how your guides can help you grow in qualities like forgiveness, compassion, and creativity. But today we're going to start with the basics. What are spirit guides? How do you meet them? Who are they? And what are some of the basics of building a relationship with them? We'll also talk about something I call spirit envy, which can really get in the way of your communicating with your guides, so it's a really important topic as well. We'll be covering a lot of material in the next 30 minutes, and we'll end with a guided meditation to give you a simple way to meet your guides for the first time, so be sure to listen all the way to the end. Whenever I do classes and workshops, I always set an intention at the beginning to create a safe and sacred space for everyone involved. So I want to start with this blessing, that this time be blessed by the presence of your guides, so that you can fully know who you are as a child of God. I invite you to settle in and relax and listen as we talk about how you can meet your guides. First, I want to tell you a little bit about my background and my own experience with spirit guides, because I think it's important for us to get to know one another that way. And it will help you understand why I so much want to help you receive the guidance that's available to you. I grew up in Iowa and still live there, right in the heartland of the U.S. My upbringing was pretty stable, very normal in all sorts of different ways. But like many children, I had the feeling of not fitting in or not understanding my place with other people, and I wanted to know and understand this world in a different way too. My parents were both very spiritual people, although they didn't talk about that very openly. What they did do was subscribe to magazines like Fate and UFO magazine. Those publications had stories of past life experiences, out-of-body experiences, spontaneous healings, other worlds. And I can remember sitting in the basement and reading those publications for hours because they spoke to something in me that allowed me to know that I was more than my human body, more than being the youngest of 6 children in this family, and that I wanted to understand something in this universe that I wasn't picking up in other ways. Well, when I was about 15 or 16, I experienced what many teenagers do, that sense of adolescent loneliness and a deep longing for relationship and connection to other people, especially to myself. So often we don't realize that that's what we're really missing. We want to find relationships with other people to fill up something in us, but what we're really looking for is that relationship with ourselves, to know who we are and to understand our connection to something greater. So in my book, Let Your Spirit Guides Speak, I tell the story of one particular night when I was a teenager and when I was feeling incredibly lonely. And through a very simple interaction with my spirit guides, I got an answer that I now know was from them. I didn't know it so much at the time. But before long, I realized that that one interaction had helped rearrange something in me, so that within a few weeks I started being magnetic. I started attracting friends and building relationships with people that had seemed really impossible, even just a few weeks earlier. And that's when I realized that a connection to our higher power and to our team of guides who literally are with us always is so powerful, not only in helping us understand ourselves, but in helping bring back missing parts of ourselves so we can live the life we're looking for and let it be effortless and easy without the struggle and the hardship that we so often think that life is all about. Well, after that, if we fast forward 20 or 25 years, that's when I finally really met my team of guides. I did it by going to see a woman who was a counselor and therapist, but she also did past life regressions. And during one of those regressions, I went to the time before this lifetime, between lives. And there I met my team of spirit guides. It was pretty funny because they were all wearing what I would describe as white jogging suits, white sweatpants, white sweatshirts, and they were all jumping up and down as though they were cheerleaders, which really is what they are. They were so excited to have this direct contact with me, and you can imagine that I was pretty excited about that too. Well, I learned a couple of things in that conversation with my guides. First, I was able to see them and feel the direct connection that was so powerful. But even more than that, I found out why I came into this lifetime, what my purpose is, and why I was born into the family that I chose. All of those pieces of information have helped me literally every day of my life ever since. And it's another piece of why I'm so passionate about helping you get to know your guides so that you can have that kind of information and experience too. Well, since then, I've gone on to work with my guides more directly, and I've learned a lot of things about how to build that relationship. Plus, I have made tons of mistakes along the way. So I want to share information that can help you keep from making those mistakes so that you can build more quickly a peaceful and productive and collaborative relationship with your guides. One of the reasons I want to focus on this is because we're trained to look to other people for answers in our lives. We are trained to look to teachers, or ministers, or priests, or therapists, mentors, and all sorts of others who can definitely play an important role in our lives. But the truth is that each of us has our own path to take, and our own journey, and our own purpose. So if we're looking to other people for those answers, we can get some good information, but it will always, to a certain extent, be contaminated or tainted by their perceptions and their journey. The truth is that other people don't have our answers. We have our answers. And if we look to other people for advice, for instance, on what kind of career path we should follow or what sort of relationship we should be in, we may get good information, but we may also get the answers that are right for them and not necessarily the ones that are right for us. And that's why I think it's so essential to build the relationship with your guides, because they are totally dedicated and focused on you, what you need, what will help you grow, and how you can deal with the challenges that come along so you can learn from them and hopefully not repeat them. We have limited vision as human beings, but the guides can see the bigger picture. They can see what's ahead and what will serve the highest good for us and others. So really, who better to trust with your life decisions, big and small? Well, so with that, I want to talk about who are your guides and how do you meet them? This is such an exciting and obviously very important step in moving forward with your guides. Maybe you've had experience with your guides in the past, or maybe you've had experiences with receiving communication, but you didn't know for sure where it was coming from, and you wondered, is this coming from a higher place? Is it something I should pay attention to? Well, here are a few basic things that I want you to know. The first one is that you may have one spirit guide, or you may have a whole team of them. And that may change as you go through different periods of your life, too. What you may need in one stage of your life, maybe early adulthood, could be very different than what you need later in life because your vibration has changed. You've grown and you've expanded and you've moved into a new experience of who you are. Just like the teacher that we need when we're in 5th grade is very different than the teacher that we need when we're in college. But even though they may change throughout your lifetime, I can tell you that these spirit guides are beings who are assigned to support and to be with you. It's likely that they're energies or beings that you've known for many lifetimes, and you've come together before you came into this life to make a plan. The truth is that they have always been with you, whether you're aware of them or not. But as you give them the gift of listening to them, then you open the door to a relationship in which everything literally is possible. The spirit guides may take a lot of different forms. They could be angels or totem animals or beings who look much like we do. I've had all of the above, and most likely you have too, because there is such a wide range of beings and entities who are here, and your guides are going to be the ones who are exactly right for you. So it's possible that they may be ancestors of yours, someone you've known in a former lifetime. But whoever they are your team or partner, and you can call on them 24/7, not just when life is challenging. This is such an important point, because so often when we're in the depths or the trenches of life, when things are not going well, maybe we're having financial problems, relationship problems, health problems, that's when we get down on our knees and we pray for help. That's when we ask. But the great thing about the guides is that they're always with us. In fact, whenever I sit down to talk with my guides, the very first thing they say is, "We are here with you always." And I want you to truly take that in and feel it. We are here with you always. Not just when times are tough, but every moment of every day. So if you're in the most joyful place in your life, they're there with you. And if you're in the darkest night of the soul, they're there with you. You can call on them all the time. For instance, if you're having a great day, what a wonderful time to say to your guides, "Wow, thank you for helping to create this incredible opportunity, this beautiful day. And I'd like more of this, please, because this is the joy and the ease and the flow that I'd like to have in my life all the time." So we get to ask for even more of the good stuff, as well as healing and restoration and a resolution to the bad stuff. Even that language, good and bad, is actually contrary to how the guides think. Because in truth, the way they see us and what we're here to do, everything serves a purpose. There's a wonderful line in the study program that's called A Course in Miracles that says, "Every situation, properly perceived, is an opportunity for growth and healing." And it also says that everything in this world is either love or a call for love, which means that everything you're experiencing, and I mean everything, contributes to your wholeness and your growth. And it's why it's so important to work with your guides, because they can help you see the gifts and significance in the parts of life that can seem daunting and overwhelming, or that you even want to escape or run from. So let's talk about how they communicate with you, because that happens in many, many different ways. In my own experience, sometimes I feel a presence or a brush of air against my cheek as though someone is touching me. Often I'll have a dream, or sometimes I'll hear a voice. I may just see a pattern of repeated numbers, like waking up in the middle of the night, always at 3:33, or checking the clock and seeing that it says 1:11, and then the next time you check, it's 2:22, and the next time you check, it's 3:33. All of these are ways the spirit guides break through to us and say, "Hey, we're here, please pay attention." The thing about the different forms of communication is that you will get to know the form that's right for you. There are lots of stories out there and lots of anecdotes from people who have been in touch with their guides and who have built a relationship. And their stories are helpful because all of us get to learn from each other. But what I want you to really focus on is not what's happening for other people, but what's happening for you, because that's what really matters. Just as we can get caught up in the advice we're getting from other people, we can get very distracted by other people's experiences with their spirit guides and start to think that their experience is somehow more important or better than ours. And this is the part that I call spirit envy. It's important to talk about this because it's one of the biggest blocks you may have to communicating with your guides. So let me tell you a story about spirit envy. Except for the time when I saw my guides in their white jogging suits in the time before this life, I don't typically see my guides. I may get a vague visual sense of them every once in a while, but it's not as though they come fully formed by any means. So, several years ago, I was talking with a friend who's a healer and has clairvoyant abilities. Well, she was describing her guides in full detail because she can see them. And as I listened to her, I found myself becoming very jealous. I kept thinking, I'm not as evolved as she is, or I'm not doing as good a job communicating with my guides as she is, because she can see hers and I can't see mine. But I learned something about this eventually when I talked with my guides about it. I asked, how come I can't see you when I want so much to see you? And here's what they said, and I want you to take this in and think about it for yourself. What they said to me was that the work that I do in this world is so much about listening, not just tuning into my own guidance, but also deeply listening to the heart and soul of other people. For instance, I mentor other writers as they develop their books, and as I talk with them, I try to hear between the lines, to ask questions that can help them get to the heart of what they're trying to say. So developing my ability to listen is essential to what I came here to do. It's one of my gifts. And if the guides were showing themselves to me, I would be focused on that visual experience rather than on the auditory experience and developing and growing that part of my ability. So it's not as though there's one better than or less than way of communicating. It's that they communicate with me in the way that's best to help me understand them and to help me become more effective as a teacher and communicator with other people. They communicate with me in the way that's going to help with my growth. And that's exactly what your guides will do with you. So this is what I want you to know. There are many ways to communicate with your guides. But as you meet them and you start to build that relationship, pay attention to how they're presenting themselves to you without any expectations of what that should be or any feelings of missing out because they're doing it one way instead of another. I recently talked with a woman who really wants to develop a relationship with her guides, and she's been having some awesome dreams, very symbolic dreams, very meaningful. And she can see the significance in many of those dreams. But as she was telling me about them, she said, really, though, I want my guides to talk to me during the day. I want them to have a conversation with me. I want to be able to hear them more directly. So what I said to her was, okay, stop and pay attention to what you're doing. You're dismissing all of the communication that they're giving to you in your dreams, and you're saying, yeah, that's nice, but I don't really want that. I want it this way. Well, just imagine if somebody gave you a gift, a beautiful gift wrapped up in bows, and you said, yeah, I don't, it's pretty, I like the color of the wrapping paper, but that's not really what I wanted. I wanted it this way. That person is not going to be giving you many gifts very much longer. When we do that, when we dismiss a gift that another person, or especially when we dismiss the gifts that our guides are giving us, that's our ego talking. The ego is the fear-based part of our mind. And as strange as it sounds, our egos don't want us to have relationships with our guides because the ego knows on some level that those relationships will help us grow. And the ego is all about keeping us small and stuck in the status quo, oddly, as kind of a way to protect us, but it really just wants us not to go out there, not to be who we are, not to be the greatest thought of who we came here to be. So whenever you start to listen to your spirit guides, you can guarantee that your ego is going to speak up and get in your face and distract you and say things like, yeah, sure, that seemed like a significant dream, but they're not really talking to you, so, just don't pay any attention to it. Your ego will try to diminish every experience you have with your guides. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to be aware, first of all, of that ego voice in you as it comes up. And as it tries to say that wasn't good enough, know that that's the ego. And then I want you to ask Spirit to heal that fear-based thought within you. And then pay close attention to the communication that you are getting from your guides in whatever form it's coming through and honor it. Say thank you. Sit down for 30 seconds or 30 minutes in contemplation and reflection. Think about what the guides have given you in their communication, and then connect it to what's going on in your life. That's how you'll build the relationship with your guides, because you will be totally honoring the gift that they're giving you. That's so important. This is where I made one of my biggest mistakes in getting to know my guides over the years, because at some point I got this thought in my head that they're so evolved, that they're these angelic beings from another plane. I thought that they didn't have human emotions like we do, that they wouldn't be influenced by emotions or how I acted. And so I went through a period of time when I was really angry about something in my life, and I started blaming it all on my guides. And I mean, I was out of control. It was like a spiritual temper tantrum, and I was projecting it all onto them. I said, I've been doing everything I can. Why aren't you doing your part? Why aren't you helping me? Well, you can imagine, for one thing, that's not a very healthy place to be. But the other thing is that they were doing everything they could for me. It's just that I wasn't letting it in. And I found that out a couple of months later when I had a reading with a woman who's a psychic and a channeler. She got in touch with my main guide, and afterwards she came back to me and she said, I asked him a question about this concern in your life, and I've never heard a response like this from a guide, but he's saying he doesn't have to help you. Well, I said, really? And got kind of concerned. She said, yeah, let me ask him again, because this is highly unusual. So she asked him again, and then she told me, yeah, he's saying you've been really ungrateful, and he doesn't need to help you with this. Well, I realized in that moment that I had been busted, because she obviously didn't know anything about the spiritual temper tantrum I'd had a couple of months earlier. But when I found out that my guide was saying that I was ungrateful, I realized that it had come from that experience of being so angry at my guides, and I realized this very, very important truth. What I learned is that spiritual guides, no matter how highly evolved they are, deserve the same kind of respect and dignity and gratitude and acknowledgement that we would give to anyone else in our life, any friend or family member. I want you to really get this, because we tend to create a separation in our minds between us and our guides. We put them on a pedestal and think that they're different from us, and that there's a distance because they are more evolved. And what I want you to know from the very beginning is that there is no separation. They are spirits without bodies, and we are spirits with bodies, and that is the only difference. So just as you would sit down over a cup of coffee and have a conversation with your spouse or your friend or your mom about what's going on in your life, know that you can do that exact same thing with your spirit guides, exactly the same thing. And as we go through these podcasts together, I'll be giving you lots of tips and techniques for how to literally sit down and communicate with your guides, whether you're hearing a voice, feeling a presence, you're writing down a feeling that you have. It can happen in so many different ways. But the truth in all of it is that you are sitting down with a close and trusted friend and advisor, knowing that you can trust the guidance you receive, and committing that you will give them all the same respect that you would give to anyone in your life. So those are some of the basics that I think are most important to start with, and that's quite a lot to chew on, so I want to wrap up there, except for the visualization that I will lead you through here in just a moment. That will be an opportunity for you to meet your guides for the first time. And if you're feeling any apprehension about this or nervousness, know that that's perfectly okay. I've done this meditation with many, many people. It comes directly from my book, Let Your Spirit Guides Speak, so it's been used and tested many times over. One time that I did it was in a Course in Miracles class that I teach, and a woman in that group had never had any experience with her guides, so she was pretty skeptical about the whole thing. But I led everyone through the visualization, and afterwards she opened her eyes with this look of surprise on her face, and she said 3 guides had come to her during the visualization. One of them was a brother who had passed away a few years ago, and she knew it was him because she heard him laugh. He had a very distinctive laugh. Now, this is a woman who didn't believe in this at all, but in just a 3 or 4 minute meditation, it opened up a whole new way of living for her, because since then, over the past 2 or 3 years, she's gone on to meet other guides. And even during the past few months, she's had some real challenges that have come up in her life. She's been able to draw on the comfort and the wisdom of her guides daily, multiple times a day. So she's been able to grow and handle those challenges in ways that she never would have before. It all happened because of this short visualization in which she could meet her guides for the first time. Well, it's possible that you maybe have already been in communication with your guides. Maybe you've been talking with them or listening to them for a long, long time. If that's true, I hope that you'll still do the visualization along with me, because it might give you a new message or a new technique that you can use moving forward with your guides. So here's what I'd like to do. In just a minute, I'll lead you through the visualization. But when it ends, this podcast will be over. And what I'd like you to do at that point, if you're in a place where you can, is to get a piece of paper and pen, or sit down at the computer, or speak into your phone, whatever's convenient, and record anything that came through you to this meditation that you want to hold on to and to capture. These visualizations are very much like dreams, in that if we get very far away from them, we quickly forget the message that they had for us. Our conscious minds will forget, even though the message will be recorded on a soul level. So it's helpful to write them down where you can go back to them, ask your guides about them, and keep learning from them. So before we get into that visualization, I just want to say thank you again for listening. I really hope that you've enjoyed this, and there's so much more to come. Next time, we'll talk all about trusting your team and how do you know that the guidance you're receiving is real. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast stream on iTunes. And if you'd like more information about your spirit guides, please pick up a copy of Let Your Spirit Guides Speak through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your independent bookstore. Also, I'd love to hear any questions or experiences you have about meeting and getting to know your spirit guides. You can find my contact information on my website, debraengle.com. With that, let's move into the meditation. And to get started, what I'd like you to do is just to sit very quietly and take in several deep breaths, just very normally and naturally. Close your eyes. Get comfortable wherever you're seated. If you need to shift in your chair a bit to find that sweet spot of comfort, go ahead and do that now. Take in a deep, deep breath. And then let it out with a sigh. And if you feel any fear or blockage or fatigue in your body, just take in a deep breath, breathing into that particular place in your body, breathing in love and light and healing. And then exhale anything that no longer serves you, making space for a new experience, for openness, and complete relaxation. And now in your mind's eye, see an invitation. It could be an engraved note or handwritten on a beautiful piece of stationery, however it appears to you. Just see it clearly. And know that this is an invitation to your guides, saying that you want to communicate with them and that you're inviting them to be part of your life. Bear in mind that they've already been with you always. But your invitation is a statement that you want to feel their presence. And now see yourself sending that invitation out into the universe, where it will go directly to your guides. Sending it out with confidence that it will be received and answered. And then sit back, sit quietly, and wait for the answer to come. If there's any feeling or presence of sound or color or shape that floats into your awareness, let it float in without any judgment and without any fear, simply with welcome and acceptance and gratitude. Just sit for a moment with an open heart, allowing yourself to receive and to be aware. And then when you're ready, know that you can come back to this place at any time. Take in a deep breath. Let it out with a sigh. And then very gently and slowly, and as you're ready, open your eyes. Come back to your space and record anything that you would like to remember from your experience.